All right, it's almost a minute into our session, so I'll go ahead and start just so that we have enough time to cover all of the great content from today's session. So again, welcome everyone to Run in Practice. My name is Adam. I'll be your host for today. I'm joining you from a sunny Toronto, Canada, and I hope wherever you're tuning in from, it's a beautiful day as well. Thank you all for making the time to join us here. It's going to be a fun session. I know we've got attendees from all across the globe, so that makes this session even more special. For those of you new to this space, Runn is a real-time resource management and capacity planning platform that helps businesses and teams plan their people, projects, and future demand all in one place. The goal for today is simple. We want you to leave with something that you can actually use. This program was designed to be an interactive walkthrough, no fluff, just a deep dive into the product. So we want you to really bring your questions and get into it, really get a sense of how Runn works. Today we'll be taking you through a real look at how to put skills data to work for better project outcomes. And with me today, I have Matt Webb, our senior solution consultant here at Runn, joining us, as well as Jenna Ball, our account executive. Both of them together have helped hundreds of teams solve the resourcing challenges that we're going to be discussing today. So I know it's going to be a valuable session, and I hope everyone can walk away with something that you can easily apply to your work. I kind of want to just kick us off. Matt, Jenna, please kick it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. And hello to everyone joining us today. And of course, to those who will be watching the recording afterwards. Uh, Jenna and I feel very lucky to be covering what is a very popular topic at the moment. And I think whether you've been resourcing and capacity planning for a number of years, or just even recently fallen into the role or being tasked by your company to own resourcing, you know that skills are a very critical piece to finding the most optimal resource for your projects. But it also comes down to why. I know there's a lot of teams out there that resource based on roles. And so it kind of leaves the question of, well, why do we need to resource based on skills? Why are skills so important? And what Jen and I most commonly hear is the impact that skills have on the delivery of your projects and initiatives. But it goes far beyond that, because what we're seeing is that when you're utilizing those skills of your people, you're not only ensuring that the better delivery, the stronger delivery of your projects, but you're also keeping your people engaged. You're keeping them motivated, because when they're able to leverage those skills and leverage that talent that you initially hired them for, it's keeping them motivated, keeping their morale up. And the challenge that we so often see is that if you don't have that visibility, or if you don't have proper visibility into your skills, it becomes very challenging to identify not just your projects that are at risk, but also your people. And there's a really great quote that I'm going to pull up here from our most recent case study with Brian Corgan over at the Rocket Science Group. And I won't read it word for word for everyone, but I do want to just zero in on the last sentence there, where Brian talks about having the right people with the right skills. And it's those right people that are the people that you need to keep motivated, because the moment they become disconnected from their work is the same moment that sort of cascading effect starts to occur, where it starts to impact morale and it starts to impact the delivery of your projects. So what we want to do, as Ada was saying, was just over the next 20 minutes, just take you through a few examples of how we're seeing organizations like Rocket Science Group leverage Runn to spot those gaps early so that you can address them before they pose a risk. How you can build your project teams with more confidence, backed by reliable skills data instead of guesswork, but then also be able to see out into the future and understand what that real-time demand is for specific skills, or even very high valued skills that can often be quite competitive in your market. So encourage everyone to ask as many questions. If there's anything that we can expand on, please don't hesitate to just pop a message into the chat. I'm just going to jump over into to Run right now. And just looking at the attendee, I see that there's a number of familiar names, which is awesome to see, but also some new names. So perhaps what we'll do is just spend just 2 minutes with a very brief introduction of what Run is, especially for those who are new. So I think for everyone on this call, you're probably well aware that there's a lot of different tools in the marketplace right now across resource management and capacity planning. Definitely a lot more than there was, 2 years ago. Where I would say that Run is quite unique is in our intent to be more focused on high level planning rather than your more granular task level planning. And the goal with Run is to provide stakeholders across your company with that high level visibility that is often needed to really understand, like, do we have enough capacity? Do we have enough of the right roles, of the right skills to deliver on current and future workload or future demand? And much of that visibility is surfaced across what we call the people planner. And that's what you see up on my screen right now. And this allows us to understand both capacity and utilization at either a macro level. So right now we can see this by team, but I can also drill into this team and look at, let's say, our engineering team and see this at more of a micro level. But we can also group this by skills, and Jenna's going to touch on this a bit more. But all that data that we're looking at right now is anchored by the workload that you are assigning to your resources, so the skills that are required for your respective projects. But it's also leveraging the skills that you've loaded into your skills matrix within Run. And I'm just going to pop into that right now. So just under our Manage tab, within our skills matrix, what this includes is a library of skills that either can be uploaded via CSV using our CSV uploader. You can do that in bulk. You can also connect Run to an HR tool using Run's API. But skills can also be updated by your admins and by your managers within the tool. The part I want to highlight is here we have sort of an outline of our respective skills. But if we pop over into the People tab, we can see this from more the people perspective. And we can see that for Aaron here as an example, that he's not only skilled in JavaScript, but he also has a proficiency level of 3 out of 4. And where we've seen this to be quite helpful is from an upskilling standpoint. And I think Jenna's going to talk a bit more about this in a moment. But where you have people that have maybe expressed a desire to be more proficient in JavaScript or any of these skills, by having that information available for you or to you, it gives you the opportunity to help with upskilling. So I just mentioned how that workload, that visibility is anchored by the work that you are assigning to your resources. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to jump over onto the project planner. So the project planner, you can think of this as really a portfolio view of all your confirmed projects, as well as any of your tentative projects. And Jen is going to talk more about tentative projects in a moment. But this is where you're able to staff your projects. Now, right now, I'm showing all of our projects. We can also group our projects if we wanted to group them by client, if you wanted to group them by team. You can also set up custom fields that are bespoke to your organization. So as an example, if I'll just select priority here, and we'll jump into high priority projects. Here we can see all of our high priority projects that are both confirmed as well as tentative. And it's within the project that you're able to better understand who is staffed against that project. Now, in this example, we can actually see this is staffed with placeholders. And just taking a half step back, the purpose of placeholders is to help understand or help you define the roles and skills that are needed on a project. So we often see this used early in the planning phase where you have a project in your pipeline, maybe in the backlog, and you have to define the roles and skills that are needed. So we can see there's various placeholders on here right now. Now, I can also go ahead and I can add a specific individual. And I can use filter and look for a specific skill. What I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to go ahead and add another placeholder. So I'll just pick a data engineer. And then from here, what I can do is I can assign that work either just by clicking and dragging. I can do this in hours. I can do this in a capacity percentage. I can do this in FTE. There's a lot of different options here. Now, you will notice that once I've added that time, what it's now asking me to do is add the requirements. And this is where the skills piece comes in. Because when we click into this, what this is doing is it's giving us the opportunity to better define exactly the type of resource that we need on that project. And you will see that if I go down here, I have the option to add skills. So I'll just go through and pick a couple. Let's say we'll say maybe Agile at least level 2, and then we'll pick this one as well. Now you can add additional attributes as well. You'll see as I scroll down, you can set up those custom fields so that they're bespoke to your business. And what happens here is when we save this, and then when we go back to the data engineer and I go to click on find person, what this is going to do is it's going to give you a predictive impact of what it would look like to transfer that work to those resources. But ahead of that, what that's going to do is it's going to take that same criteria that you've laid out and match that against your resources. So this is a
Sorry.
good example. Yeah,
Sorry
go
to
ahead,
interrupt,
Jen.
Matt. We just had a good question that came up that I think speaks well to what you're going through. So perhaps you can go through this. But the question is how do you figure out who to pick for a project if nobody fits my criteria for a project? So like here, Alicia comes up and, these two are a good fit. But what happens if nobody comes up that's a good fit?
That's an excellent question. And the reason that it's an excellent question is because in this example, we have two resources that fit that criteria, but you'll see as I hover my mouse over top, it's actually telling us that they are over capacity. So it would not make sense to transfer that work to them. Now, to answer your question, the way in which we've actually started to implement AI into Runn is through our Smart Match AI semantic search. And the purpose of this is to actually show you the next best possible match. So you'll see as I turn this on, we have an additional matcher. So we've got Wen Lu, and if I go to transfer, we can see that this actually wouldn't put them over capacity. And the reason that it's showing us that it's a great fit is we can click on the side here, and it's bringing up this side panel to let us know how that person ranks against the requirements of that placeholder. So we can see we have an exact match. The gap there is in the team. So it's saying that Wen is on the data team. And so in this case, we can say, you know what? We have the skills that are needed. So we can actually go ahead and transfer Wen to that project, which I'll just go ahead and do right now. Now, one thing I want to mention is in the example where, let's say, you still don't have anyone available, that becomes more of a business decision, right? That becomes sometimes a discussion with the client. Like, are we pushing the project out by 2 months? Maybe it's more of an internal discussion. Like, are we needing to hire someone? And you'll see actually with some of these placeholders, they're marked as hire proposed. So you can change that status to hire proposed, and then you can run a report within Runn to give you a clear summary of where your resourcing gaps are. And Jen is going to talk more about this in a moment. And this is actually a really good example, very similar example of what we've seen with one of our clients down in Australia. I say down in Australia because I'm based up here in Canada. They're a major IT services and consulting firm, and they specialize in SAP transformation. But they use skills very extensively, and it's done in a very similar way. So they add skills to their placeholders to match the right person with those skills. and their PMO will add the placeholders, and then their resourcing leader is the one that's actually going in and doing that matching. The challenge that they identified early for them, before Runn, was they were new to the organization. So it was virtually impossible for them to know the skills of all 200 of their people. So they found it very useful to be able to just click that find a person button, and then understand what that matching looks like. So placeholders carry immense importance when it comes to being able to look for the right skills.
Matt, as you're going through that, there's some other questions that came in. So before I kind of get into the next bit, um, so there was a question on the find resource process. Is it matching on the skill alone or the skill
Mm.
and the role? Secondly, can I choose if I'm okay with somebody in the skill only but not the role? And I can take this because I had a second to digest it. But so when you add in all the requirements and criteria, it is matching on all of those requirements and criteria. The benefit of Smart Match AI is it then kind of opens up another layer to kind of have that analysis to understand, like, is the skill really the priority or the main thing that I'm after,
Yeah.
regardless of the role? And then you can see kind of that match criteria as Matt pulled up to say, okay, we are 10 out of 10 on the skills that are required to deliver this project. The role is different, but that doesn't matter. So that's where you can really look across your resource pool and not be so narrowly focused on the role alone, to look at what are the requirements really to deliver this project as well.
And just
Yeah.
to add to that too, something that we're seeing as a change in the workplace, a change in hiring procedures, is that skills are now being prioritized over the role, and I think that's just further increasing the importance of having the right visibility over your skills as well.
Mhm. There's one more question that came in. Can I request level two and above, or is the filter only filtered people that are level two? And I'm not sure. I need to test this definitively for myself. I'm not sure if you know that one offhand, Matt. When you
Uh, it'll be two, yeah, two and above.
Okay, okay, that's what I
Yeah.
thought, but I wanted to double check. Okay, cool. Awesome. So as we kind of transition to kind of, we went through skills-based resource allocation. When I transition into some of the insights that then Run can really go through, before I do, just one kind of little story here, and where we can see Run being used as well. And I'm sure a few people on the call have watched the show The Pit. It's a medical show about a teaching hospital in Pittsburgh. If you haven't, great show. But if you treat your organization like a teaching hospital, you might have a situation where people are, wanting to be more proficient or upskill in a certain category, whether it's a want or even a need by the organization. And what's neat about within Run is you can easily just with a couple clicks, clone a work assignment, find somebody else that perhaps you can pair up or buddy with, so that they can also learn and become more proficient in different skills if they are perhaps lacking in that certain skill set, or they want to get to a 1 to a 4, or whatever the goals are. And you can really pair them with people to help them learn on the job and give them greater exposure to somebody else learning that skill. And what's neat as well is you can also categorize the work assignment on a project as either non-billable work, or even create a separate work stream and Run altogether called training, so that you can see, like, how much time do we allocate towards training on different projects in the past quarter, being able to report on some of that information. So thought I would just add that there as well. Okay, so why don't we flip to the people planner, and we're going to go through some of the kind of insights and information you can gather from within Run. So a key thing, as Matt went through a little bit earlier, is that you can group resources by different attributes. I know he showed by team, but also by skills to get a macro view of your resource pool. Right now we're looking at utilization, and in this view right here, what we can see is a visual representation of the skills that are most in demand over time. And any of those like red bubbles that you see on the screen, you can clearly see where those skills are, overutilized. They're really in demand for different projects. And the benefit of this particular view is that you can understand where there might be skill gaps for future project hiring, and kind of planning needs as well. And so this is, all great from a graph perspective, but also understanding this from an FTE or kind of head count you can clearly see what does this, actually mean, so you can understand where that, resource or demand gap is. For example, AWS, we kind of see a trend where there's an overage of this skill and demand. So that's something perhaps to keep an eye on. Do we need to hire yet? But having those, quarterly or, frequent conversations as well. I'll also add that these are all just for confirmed projects. So these are ones that are, already in flight, already happening. But within Run, you can also layer on those tentative projects that are perhaps in the backlog or in the pipeline, aren't yet completely planned, to understand that if everything were to go through as planned, this is, what that skill demand would look like to further support your future planning. And Runn has a new scenarios feature. It just was launched, I guess, about a month ago. But a key thing about this is you can create different saved scenarios or scenario groups, where if I wanted to understand what is the impact if we just move forward with 80% probability, or different high priority or specific client, you can group it in different ways. And this is where I can link all projects that match this filter with that specific scenario. So as you're coming in and planning new tentative projects, these are really helping you to improve your forecasting accuracy, to understand the true demand based on different scenarios. And we often hear different organizations wanting to be more structured with their planning, whether they're, at day one or they're getting there. But this is a key part, about it, whether it's quarterly, annual, monthly planning, whatever your planning cycle is. This can really, help to understand those skill-based deficits early. So, we're short on this skill in this quarter. We need to start, hiring or perhaps upskilling some of our people, like that teaching hospital analogy, to make sure that we are going to be able to deliver the work that's coming in as well. The other key view that Matt's going over to is placeholder demand. So as we talked about, placeholders are the unmet demand. We don't have anyone to fulfill that. So a key thing about separating out the placeholders from the rest of your folks, your resources, is being able to see a very clear perspective to understand your shortage or your deficit for different skills. That we have all of these skills, and perhaps we don't have anyone to fulfill it. We've looked up among our current resources, expanded outside of roles as an example, to see who else is out there. But this is another really key view that a lot of our customers find valuable, to understand which resources which skills are most in demand based on our placeholders that we currently have allocated to projects. Right. So that's, I think, the key things that we wanted to go through from an insights perspective. I know that we only have 30 minutes for this session, so it's always so hard to get all the good nuggets in here. But I think what we'll do is we'll kind of go over to a bit of a summary, and then we'll see if there's any final questions that we can address. But yes, as we went through today, Runn can help support that skills-based resourcing to help support your delivery goals, employee engagement, utilizing your talent, and more, as well as really giving you some of those key insights to help influence your prioritization of projects, your hiring decisions, and all of that stuff that we discussed as well. Some of the key takeaways to help with leveraging your skills data, we pulled up on this slide here. So I think a key thing with skills is to avoid complicating the list. Keep it really simple, especially from the starter. If this is something you're just starting out with, like, what are the skills that we need to track or have in place to deliver the work? You can, of course, expand by there as you need, but just go with the bare minimum to match people to projects. And then along the same lines of that as well is standardizing the language, making sure that your HR teams, talent acquisition, delivery teams all agree on the same terminology. So those skills profiles are kind of carrying the same meaning and same language across different departments.
And Jen,
So
actually, sorry to jump in.
yeah.
There's a good question here, I think relates to what you're saying. So the question is asking how many skills, and please correct me if I'm misframing the question, how many skills is a good number to have for a resource or even as an organization?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it definitely depends on the size of the organization. And I know we've had Some experts, some might even be on the call today from our LEAP webinar series weigh in on this. And I understand from their perspective, especially being, in it all the time, is focusing it strictly on your staffing leads or needs, sorry, aiming for 20 to 40 core skills. Even if there's multiple business lines, like per business line, so that you can really focus on a lot of those technical skills, I think, first and foremost, but, even other soft skills as needed. So that's kind of a good number to go with. Yeah, good question.
Awesome.
The second takeaway is really just to improve your resourcing efficiency and strategic forecasting through using skills-based insights to ensure the right people match the right projects, identifying those upcoming skill deficits early, and utilizing scenario planning as we went through to proactively inform your hiring and upskilling decisions as well. And lastly, as we talked about, the on-the-job training, just being able to use that teaching hospital to use skills data to pair high performers with experts that are really looking to upskill and learn on the job, just to level up competencies through on-the-job training and mentorship as well. So some takeaways for you there, but hopefully going through the demo in different ways of skills-based resourcing and getting those insights was helpful as well. So we'll see if there's any other kind of questions that come in, and then I'll hand it over to you, Adam. Oh, there is another question. So Anna asks, can I have more than 4 levels of knowledge? So within Runn, there is 4 levels, and I believe that this is intentional as well. I don't know the exact reason. I'm not sure if, Matt, you know more of the behind the scenes at all, or perhaps it's something we can get back to Anna on.
Yeah, I think it comes from the Resource Management Institute, where we've seen people sort of fulfill that need where they need to go beyond for is through custom fields. And I was actually going to, I think it relates to this, that when you have attributes that may not be native to the way that we track them in Runn, you can set those up as custom fields. And certifications are a really good example of that. Some people like to separate certifications from skills. And those custom fields, such as a certification, can also be an attribute that is layered into your placeholder requirements. But a lot of what you see there is through best practices from the Resource Management Institute.
Thanks.
Good question. Very good question, though. But yeah, if anyone else has any other questions, please let Jenna and myself know. You can always pop us an email. Otherwise, I'll transfer back to Adam there. Oh, you're on mute, Adam.
Jenna, thanks, Matt, for a great session. I think we're about ready to wrap up. I don't see any other questions in the Q&A, so I think that's a wrap for today. Thank you all again for being here and for the great questions throughout. A couple of things just before we go here. I know we have a slide here with a couple of contact details. I don't know, Jenna, if you want to skip
What's
over
Matt?
slide
Do you
or
want to go to the next slide?
Yeah.
there we go. That's what we're looking
So
for.
there's a question that came in.
Do we want to take that last one, Matt, here while we're still on? Or the
Jenna was on it. She jumped on it.
Cool. Awesome. So just want to say we do have contact details on the screen here. If you do have any questions that might have not been answered or you want to follow up, feel free to reach out to Matt and Jenna using the sales@runn.io. We will also be following up with a recording of the session here for today. So keep an eye out for a follow-up email that should be coming in the next couple of hours or within the next day or so. If you are new to Runn, again, and you haven't started your trial journey, please feel free to use the link that we've shared in the chat. I'll feel free to share that again before we wrap up, but use that link to create your free trial account and kind of go through the journey that we took you through today. If you have any pending questions, again, feel free to use that email address on the screen. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us here today. Hope to see you at the next one.
Thanks
Bye.
all.